Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Michael, captain of
Hello.
Smart German. Hello. Many people keep asking me how to learn German to read the great German philosophers and poets like Goethe and Hegel and Heidegger and Nietzsche and Schopenhauer. Not Leibniz, because he wrote in French, traitor. And Immanuel Kant, as they pronounce him in English for obvious reasons, because if you say Kant, then you get in trouble. And many, many others. So now I'm very glad to be able to introduce to you Michael, who teaches German, has been teaching German for more than 10 years, I think.
25.
Well, but online, I think it was 10 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, 13, I think. Or what is it? 2017, but I started in 2012 with the online thing, yeah.
Yeah. So we met in Rome. Where else would you meet? At an event of Teachable. And it's very good to bring you on and to discuss, first of all, how to study or how to learn German. Your website is called Smarter, so I'll link to it in the description of this video. And but maybe let's just begin with your experience of teaching languages. I have no idea how to teach a language. I wouldn't know how to start or where to start. And then also, what do you think is a good idea for anyone who wants to read, I don't know, Nietzsche, for example, auf Deutsch in German? I mean, how long it might take for someone to get there, all these things we have to discuss.
Nichts leichter als das. Nothing simpler than that.
Yeah.
We start with Nietzsche in my courses, of course, because it's a good introduction to the German soul. But how to learn a language.
In the end, he stylized himself as a Polish nobleman. He was so fed up with the Germans. He said that Nietzsche is a Polish name, but that's another issue, perhaps. I don't know.
I'm sorry to hear that. We lost a good man. So yeah. How to learn a language. That's I hope you have a little bit of time. Yeah. I went to university for many years to figure that out and read many, many books. But it starts with working on the basics, right? You need the words. No words, no language. Well, unless it's sign language, but then the signs are the words. So you need to learn the words. The question is, what words do you start with, right? If you want to read Nietzsche, I wouldn't necessarily start with complex philosophical words. Unless you are already a trained philosopher and you know exactly what that means, it might be a bit different. For me, I personally have to admit, reading Nietzsche is work. Yeah, and I cannot claim to comprehend him easily, if at all. So you need to know what you're going into, that's for sure. But you need the basics. And you need to set a goal. It's as simple as that. You say your goal is to, let's say, read Nietzsche, or Hegel. You do not need to speak Nietzsche or Hegel. You do not need to necessarily write on that level. So you can skip 2 skills out of 4. You do a bit of grammar, because grammar is like a scaffolding. It helps you identify things, understand things. And that therefore it is a good investment of your time. But start with some words, get a hang of the language. Ideally, you work your way up to B2 level, and philosophy. I think at that level, you should be able to work your way through philosophical texts. Yeah, C1, of course, is getting even more complex, but that's where you start in B2. I wouldn't necessarily start earlier, although you can try if you are already proficient in the philosophical way of thinking. Yeah, so that is a spontaneous recommendation. That question, and it takes time. You have to be aware that this is not a weekend job, or an intensive seminar. This might take you years. But I'm talking to people interested in philosophy, right? So time is just relative. Why would you worry about whether something takes 6 months or 3 years? If I can go into detail how many years it actually takes, if you like. Yeah,
we live in suspended time. I quote one of my teachers, M.M. McCabe from King's College London, many years ago. We went to Windsor Park. I forgot the name of the cottage. Doesn't matter. And at some point, they were saying, "Let's play football," but everyone had forgotten the football. These philosophers, right? And then she yelled at the entire hall from the back, and I was sitting next to her. We're philosophers. Who needs reality? Just imagine, just imagine the ball. Just imagine the football. So yeah, but go into detail how many years it might take someone, because we need to manage expectations, as they say.
But of course, you have seen and promote the Monty Python video of the philosophers' soccer match, right? You've seen that. Yeah, good. At least that might be a good starting point. So, how many years? So officially, there is a couple of numbers, and you see what schools offer. If you go to a language school and take an intensive course, which takes 3 hours a day plus half an hour break, it takes you 9 months to get to the end of B2. And if you want to round this up, another 3 months until you finish C1. If you have the 3 hours a day to study that, and if things go smoothly, which of course they always do. Yeah. So, and that means for normal mortals that have a job, that are adults, and that cannot necessarily spend that much time every day on studying this, it might take quite a bit longer. It could take 2 years, could take 3 years. It depends on how much time you invest and also how much joy you have while learning. Because it doesn't really matter whether it takes 3 or 5 years, as long as you enjoy the journey. Why would you worry? And it might take a bit less because you can skip the writing part, which takes a bit getting used to, and also the speaking part, which is actually the most challenging part. So maybe you are more on the 2 years end than the 3 years end because of that. It depends on many factors, but these are the common denominators. Yeah.
So just to learn how to read, be proficient in reading.
Reading and listening. Listening, I would still add, but you don't have to necessarily, of course. Yeah. So you could focus on reading, which mainly means input of vocabulary and grammar. The listening, I just find more enjoyable, and you also maybe want to listen to podcasts at times.
Yes. So maybe talk about some listening exercises for people. I mean, I don't know, is it TV shows or is it podcasts or what is it?
I recommend often against videos, simply because they are long and complex, and you need to watch the screen. While audio, podcasts or audio books or audio plays, which are my favorites, you can take anywhere and you can listen to those anywhere. You can, of course, nowadays watch on your mobile phone, but it's not the same. It's too much effort for worse outcome than a podcast. When I was 18, I copied the whole soundtrack or the whole audio of the movie Spaceballs onto a cassette. You guess how old I am. And I was listening to that. I knew the whole movie by heart. I don't remember whether that was in German or in English, but I would do the same nowadays and just listen to my favorite movie or favorite piece of podcast again and again and connect to it. That is a good start, even though you might not have the skills yet to fully comprehend it. But there's many exercises to practice listening. And the problem you need to master is that you can listen to German all day, 24/7 until you die. If you do not understand what you're listening to, there's not much learning happening.
So how do you, what do you do then? While you're listening to the podcast, you need to look up words, or how do you?
Yeah, you need structure. First of all, having a structure will accelerate everything. So if you're just blindly watching YouTube videos or asking ChatGPT, hey, help me with this and that, you will have many gaps. You will not have a direction, and you will just dance around, which can be enjoyable, no problem with that. But if you have a structure, the structure would introduce words to you. The course would introduce words that you also listen to, so you make yourself familiar. Oh, how does that sound? What I do, which is relatively unique from what I've seen, is that I relate the German words that you come across in my courses to English. So if I say the word, a classic example is false friends, I'm not focusing only on that. But you see the word gift in German has a completely different meaning than it has in English. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. As an example.
Well, to tell everyone what gift means.
Well, if you give a gift to your wife, that usually means, or to your husband,
Poison,
that usually means you want to get rid of them because it's poison. Yeah.
In English, friends, be careful now. But auf Deutsch, in German, gift means present.
A present. So imagine you give your better half the gift of poison. So you can make associations, you use mnemonics to memorize something quickly, and it sticks with you much longer than if you just write it down 50 times. There's still people nowadays that write down 50 words on a piece of paper with translations. Proven technique, but highly inefficient. So I use technology to your benefit. I want you to learn fast because not everyone enjoys this procedure necessarily, maybe in the beginning, but after the thousandth time you do this, you get tired. Yeah? And this is the art, to integrate technology into the learning process without overwhelming you with technology. Because the internet or the technology we use nowadays is far from ideal. And if you ask me, that is actually the key focus educators online should master. Yeah. So yeah, this is what you can do. And you take it with you. If you want, you speak along. That also enhances the memorization, the learning process. Yeah. So speaking is not something you need to omit, but everything helps. Even writing can be pleasurable. Yeah. All plays together somehow. And certain activities are more fun. And why should you omit them? Yeah. But what you need to be aware of is that I work a lot with adults, of course, and people that want to study here or work here, and they have to reach the same level, B2. Yeah.
Here
otherwise,
being German, by the way, anyone.
My apologies. Yes. Even in Berlin, people have to speak German.
Some German.
Some sort of German.
Yeah.
I'm not from. And I lost the train of thought there. So what was that? So it was, you need to learn the language to that degree. And people are often in a kind of, how to say that, they feel it's a chore. If I don't do my 3 hours today, I need to be punished. I feel guilty. Yeah. And this is my main job nowadays, to make people feel at ease and to find back the joy, the discovery, because I look at German or any language as a discovery. But of course, sometimes you have outside influences that force you to study faster and not go the leisure way. You can do both with my courses, either way. Yeah, you can torture yourself with them, no problem, and intensify, or you take it easy.
Well, talk more about leisure, the leisured way of learning, which is, of course, the noble way of learning, as we know. Otium cum dignitate, as so said. The very foundation of Helkion is otium, not negotium.
Oh, good. I like. What shall I add? I should say how you do this leisurely.
Expand on it, because it might seem to people that it is a bit of a chore, that you've got to get through. I mean, you still have to do the work, but there's different ways of approaching the work, as it were.
I often, it's complex, right? So the human psyche is complex. The motivation itself is such a mystery. Where does it come from? Can we influence it? What influences it? Even research is not clear. It's not that there's a book that tells you how to do it. There's many books telling you how to be motivated, but honestly, I have my doubts whether that is really truly based on science and is like a manual that you can follow. So take anything I say with a grain of salt, of course. A leisured way depends. What I try to achieve is also that you start leaning back a moment and look at, what am I doing here? What is this about? Where do I want to go? Yeah. And you also need to remind yourself, why do I want to learn German? It's not wrong to learn German to reach B2 to get a better job. Yeah. Science shows a higher level of German corresponds with higher income. So Of course, why not? And there's more joy in speaking a language, the better you actually are able to use it. So absolutely clear that the aiming high is a good thing. And how do you get out of this idea? It's not that easy. You need to look at your goal, and you truly need to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I really doing this? Am I doing it because I think other people are expecting me to do it? Or, and is that really distinguishable from what I want? That's another thing. So you can go into this thought process. Of course, don't think my course makes you think all the time. Quite the opposite. I try to get you out of your head, but occasionally you need to lean back and observe, what am I doing here? Maybe a practical example. So when you start a language, there's so much information and there's thousands of questions. You see a sentence, you start asking, why is this? Why is this ending? Why is it not this ending? What is the dative? I have no idea what this means. You get easily overwhelmed. And that's when many people stop learning altogether or try something simple. They use an app where you can just answer simple things and look up the solution right away. And you can do that, but that's more entertainment than it's learning. No?
Yeah.
So what you need to do is to cut things into small pieces. Yeah. You start at one step at a time. German itself is not a complicated language. There is categorizations. It is a level 2 language. Level 1 languages being Spanish and Italian, just as an example, and then comes German. And later on you have Chinese and Finnish and all these beautiful languages that are quite a challenge. So it's not a necessarily complex language. So you can master that given the right approach or given a structured approach and enough time and a little bit of peace of mind, to take the scary part away. Complexity is something you build up to. You do not necessarily start with, which is why I said maybe don't start with philosophical terms right now, and especially not if you don't know what they mean. In this context. So keep it simple is a good point, and that's I guide you step by step through the course, and I try to help you make connections that you already have. Connect German to things you already know. This is learning in general, or it's one way of learning that you connect new information with old information. Basically, you connect to your existing synapses, or you create new synapses, right? And it's all relatively simple, if you ask me. But keeping your mind at bay, your expectations at bay, that is the biggest challenge you will experience. And nowadays, I do offer weekly Q&As, not only to my students, to anyone interested. I do not offer one-on-one counseling, but it's not needed. Just having someone there that you can talk to or get a little bit of a nudge in the right direction occasionally, that does the job. That brings you through the whole process. So there's many things and ways you can do to calm down. And let me go back to the question. So the thousands of questions you have, nevertheless, most of them don't need an immediate answer. So I've created a technique I call the mind-pleasing notebook. You have a little notebook, and there you write down all your questions, and then you close the notebook and continue learning. And that is a beautiful strategy that works hervorragend for most learners. And once a week you look through and see, oh, that question is actually clear now, because you have continued your studying in my courses, and the things are gonna get answered, just not right now. So put it in there, please your mind, because it knows it has been seen and the question has been acknowledged, but the answer is not that urgent, so it's fine. Things like this I do to make the learning part lighter and also more enjoyable. And I'm constantly trying to put more joy into things without making it silly. You don't need little animations and stuff like that, or gamification. Yeah, you can do that, but the benefit is marginal. So I wouldn't bet or put everything on that one feature of gamification. But I have that, of course, as well. No. So that were quite a few things I do, but they're all really nicely structured. I can guide you through the courses in a bit, no problem. Yeah, if you like.
So when it comes to, I don't know, let's say Goethe, especially in terms of philosophy, Nietzsche, Hegel, and Heidegger are very use colloquial terms. So what sounds, especially when you translate this into English, as not Kant. Kant tries to be a Latinist. Even his grammar is Latin. So his sentence structures are quite awkward. But Heidegger, I mean, Nietzsche is very conversational or colloquial. Hegel and Heidegger use terms from everyday language, but they use it in a different way. So that's why I think that's why we had a discussion before. You need some understanding of what I would refer to as conversational German. Doesn't have, so that you understand in context what these terms mean in the context of how Germans would speak, and then also how this changes slightly in a philosophical discourse. Because you know what I'm trying to say? So you need to get to that level, at the very least, to be able to follow a conversation that people are talking about, ways in what words mean when we speak that we never think about. Words like Mann, das Mann. So just to give this example briefly, Heidegger raises this weird expression of the German language, which is Mann. I give you one example. I could say, Mann war sehr traurig, or instead of saying, I was very sad, which is a strange way of using it, but it's used, and it is a passive form. As you know, it's passive, but it sounds active. So it is actually something being done to you rather than, and it's general, it's ominous, nobody knows who it is, it's everyone and no one. And Heidegger raises this to a philosophical concept almost, where it becomes that he speaks of the
beautiful.
Man dictates, and in English it's translated, it dictates, man liest was man liest. One reads what one reads. So you have to speak like the late Queen actually to understand, because the terrible translation in English is the they self. So it's this ominous other, but das Man is not another. It's all of us and no one at the same time. That's how I understand it. And it's not an ominous they over there while there's an authentic self over here. And if only I could get rid of this inauthentic them, then I can be my authentic self over here. That's not what it is. But this is how usually Heidegger is understood in the English-speaking world, because of this miserable translation of das Man as the they self, which is hideously wrong and shows me that the translators may know correct German, but don't know German. They don't understand the language. They have no feeling for it. They have no, it's just basically looking up words in a dictionary, and then but it's not it's not in context. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's not an easy task. Yeah,
because I mean, if you're translated, that's your task. That's literally your task. So they should have done a much better job, which they didn't.
Well, reaching the level of a translator, right? That's already quite a challenge. That goes beyond our main goal, and I'm not sure that necessarily is a feasible goal.
No, I'm not talking about people it's not that anyone who takes your courses works their way up to being a translator. But if you get to translate Heidegger, right, then this is what you should have actually understood, that what man means in German. And you shouldn't have just taken the easy way out and called it the they self and generate this entire 100 years of scholarship. Yeah. Quite seriously, 100 years on this ominous other they self, which is inauthentic, and which you can, and then you can go into all kinds of spiels about what these evil others, etc. That's been done as well, but it's completely off the mark. And so understanding German in a smarter way, which is to say, to understand it actually as it's being spoken, that should help. If you look at a text like this and realize this is what he's talking about, because you know that, because you've heard it. You see?
Yeah, you need to start with the everyday meaning, basically. Otherwise, it's quite tough to get there right away. I can see that you can fill books with this and discussions for hours. What does this man mean? Yeah, and yeah, funny. I like that. I don't spend much time thinking about that, but I'm not a philosopher. I just say, man, remember mankind. Yeah, that's the job. And it doesn't mean it's a man. Yeah. But man in English is the same, right? What does man mean? It can mean in homme, like me, like whatever, masculine
Male,
being. And it could also mean man goes to the moon, yeah, which is mankind. Or the first man doesn't mean it was a male being. So it goes in these directions. And these little different or huge differences, they become clearer the higher you get in the learning process. So that's why B2 is the minimum that you need to even get into these realms. And C1 then really starts where you start thinking, dissecting, and also maybe diving much deeper into individual nuances. In the early levels, I wouldn't bother with this because you overwhelm yourself with this.
Yeah.
You need to work your way through. So nobody starts becoming a rocket scientist by studying rocket science. They start with basic physics and chemistry and God knows what else they have to study. And they work their way up to that for maybe 10 years or longer. Yeah. The same happens with philosophical German. You can, of course, occasionally open a philosophical book and see what do I already get, but don't expect to understand much. Pick out words and always to remind you, this is my goal. One day I will understand. And maybe month by month you see, oh, there is a little bit more I understand. But again, reading Nietzsche, even as a native, I tried, of course, or Goethe, if you want to go there, it's a challenge. And I have 54 years of German practice. I'm not sure whether the first years count, but at least passive exposure. Yeah. I started speaking in the first week, I think. Was an exception.
So.
Ja,
du armer Tor, steht immer noch da, als klug als wie zuvor.
Ja, genau. Festgebrannt in der Erde, and then it ends. I was tortured with poetry in my early years, but as you see, nothing stuck.
Too much of an engineer. So walk us through maybe some of your courses then.
Let me show you my opus magnum.
Yeah, please. It's not quite the Faust, but it's
not yet. Well, I optimized the paper Faust is printed on. Okay. Let me go. So this is what the course looks like right now. You see quite a few lessons or lectures here. In total, I think it's 50 lessons, which consist of 5 to 10 lectures. So it's quite a lot of input. I created this course to compete with standard courses in language schools. So this is not a Duolingo kind of course or app. It is really something that is worthy be called a German course, which you would pay hundreds of dollars for locally if you went there, online or offline. And of course, you start with the most important message: do not panic. And then you start with reading texts. I show you where this is going because this is the beginning. So you start with reading a text, relatively simple, and you try to figure it out. What does this mean? And this is to just see how much of this do I already understand. And if there's a word that you do not get, let's say shined, you click on it.
Shined.
And you see the translation.
The English, yeah.
And it will be added to your vocab tool, which you can open easily from here. And then, well, this is an old one. It shows you the word. You have to remember what was the meaning, and it gives you the context. Yeah, because this is the first thing you need to understand to be able to identify. And based on this text, and this text is the first chapter of a criminal story. Two detectives are trying to
A true crime story or a crime story?
solve a crime, and the first level A1 is about the pugs of the chancellor, Mr. Merkel. No similarities to real life. They have been kidnapped. Quite exciting. We don't know who it was and why this happened. And over 50 chapters, you get deeper and deeper into the story, and you have suspicions who might have been it. And in the end, if you have worked your way through this properly, you will get the relief of knowing who kidnapped the pugs and whether they are still alive. Who knows? Maybe it's a dark story. No? And you work your way through this, and then I walk you for relaxation. I walk you through the story. I explain every sentence, and I relate most words that can be related to the English language, so they stick easier. So you don't have to do so much vocabulary training, and so on. And you practice this in many ways. And let me show you where this is heading, because it's you repeat, and you do this for the first lesson. The first lesson is a bit bigger because I introduce new techniques or old techniques which you might not have used for a while, but it gets a bit shorter and shorter once you're familiar with how to work. You see here the words, the techniques repeat. Yeah. And you do so lesson by lesson. What changes mainly is the text and, of course, the grammar. So let me find a grammar lesson. Here, present tense. So the grammar is introduced in videos. The present, you forgive the audio, it will be better soon. This is old stuff. I did this in 2012, 2013, but the content is as good as evergreen. Yeah, and I like the style. I had a really artsy friend who helped me do this. So I introduce a grammar point in simple English so that it's very clear. And then I also, of course, give it to you in text form so that you have time to process everything. And then, of course, you practice what you have learned. With instructions, you can hide. And then you see, do you know how to say, I drink a coffee every morning? This is the first level out of 5. I have all levels covered, A1 to C1. C2, I haven't gotten around to yet because there's simply no market for it. No, such a course costs tens of thousands of euro to create. And if I only sell $1,000 worth a year or in 2 years, I will not live long enough to make this worth my time. Yeah, but if there's enough interest, let me know. And based on the story and based on the grammar, you do different exercises like speaking, writing, and so on. Now let me show you the future of German learning, which looks a little bit more streamlined and less put together. This is my own creation on my own server. So this is straight to the point. And you see here the 5 levels, and you see I'm pretty wide or pretty through A1. I have special courses as well. Let's go to, ask.
How does it work if someone signs up, then they're in they get the whole thing, the whole package?
Very good question. Yes, of course. So on Teachable, you see here, you get enrolled in currently, I think 9 courses, 5 level courses, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1.
Yeah.
And also 2 exam courses for A1 and B1. I will also add more, and DSH, but I will take the DSH out, which is a university format. So you get access to all levels, of course. Yeah, almost all that you see here. Look, here's a few in different forms. Yeah. So 7 courses at least. I'm working on other specialized courses. I have a theological German course in the making, which goes a little bit into your direction. Yeah. Or Leben in Deutschland is for migration. But I want to show you what it looks like in the new platform. So the principles are the same. You highlight words, you get this. You have audio, so you can learn to associate the audio with the writing, which is important.
It helps. 2 things. Let's go back to the story, the beginning of the story. It's factually wrong. So what it says here is, es ist ein schöner Montagmorgen in Berlin. That is in English. It is a beautiful Monday morning in Berlin.
Yeah.
Here's the factual. It's incorrect. Monday mornings in Berlin are terrible.
It
So
depends.
no, in my experience, not very good. So
we've come a long way since you were here.
That's okay. Now it's nice, and since I left, it got nicer. Okay.
Monday morning is the day that you go into Berghain nowadays.
I remember it being Sunday. So another question, though, briefly, because you mentioned it before you continue. You mentioned the theology for German for theologians. I mean, that is there is so much overlap between philosophy and theology. So anyone interested, once this is done, so you've signed. Let's say you're signed up. You do the basics, and this is out. If I just see 19th century prose, that's what you need. Nietzsche's language is theological language. Heidegger takes so much. He was a student of theology first. He takes so much theological language, and there's not that much difference. We can pretend that there is, but there really isn't. And ultimately, Martin Luther, as much as I hate to say it, did invent modern German. I hate to admit it. Hier stehe ich kann nicht anders. He could do no different. He had to invent the German language in its modern form. We don't have a Dante, do we? He had to be a bloody monk. Go on. I'll be quiet now.
And not the nicest kind, from what I've heard, but I'm not a Lutheran, so you see, yeah, indeed, this kind of thinking, and this takes a bit more for me to finish because I'm not a theologian, right? But I like this way of thinking. You decode the language a little bit differently. But this kind of decoding, again, I would only start once you have mastered B2.
Yeah.
Simply for simplicity reasons. Yeah, because then you know what is the passive, what are modal particles. It's not that you become an expert in grammar or grammar terms. There is not too many grammar terms, and I explain them in simple English, so no worries. But there's a couple of things this you don't need. For example, you could speak. Access denied because of a recording. But you could read this out loud, and it would give you feedback on your word level pronunciation, and then you would learn. You get the language awareness I was talking about. Yeah, and you see the looks have everything is neatly designed and summarized. This is for talking. You speak freely for half a minute up to 5 minutes. You have to earn your way to the 5 minutes. And of course, I have master classes that are always a bit longer, where I go into the more complex matters and take them apart. I love analyzing things, dissecting them, and putting them back together step by step, so you see how they are built up. And that gives an understanding you don't find necessarily in many other places. Yeah. What is there? One of my favorites is dictation. Ignore the design. This will be changed. Will be nicer. You listen and you transcribe what you hear, and this helps you on many levels. Yeah, it helps you learn to listen and hear the nuances, which can decide about who is doing what. Let me type something. Yeah, you can ask.
Well, do you want to give this a funny example, for example, of umfahren oder umfahren?
That's a good example. Yeah.
So can you explain? Because it's the same words, the same spelling, but it all depends on the pronunciation.
Ja, zum Beispiel, ich umfahre ein Hindernis. I drive around a barrier. And if I say, ich fahre die Oma it's a classical example. That doesn't mean you drive around her. That means the opposite. It means you ride over the Oma, the grandmother. Yeah. And the difference is only in pronunciation and, of course, context. Yeah. Very likely when you read, ich fahre die Oma well, actually, no, it's not pronunciation. My apologies. So, the first kind is you keep the umfahren together. Ich umfahre die Oma, let's say this time. And the other one, ich fahre die Oma um. The moment you cut the off, that's the one where you kill the Oma, very likely. Yeah, but sometimes it is, which kind it is, in the infinitive you only hear by listening to it. Yeah, umfahren, umfahren. And so there's many, it's not many words like this, but this is a classic example indeed. Yeah. And grammar is the same. For example, you can say, let me find a space to write quickly. Articles anyhow, pronunciation, of course, but if you want to speak, but this is not relevant for most of you. Writing. So let's say you want to write, or not this one. Free writing. Well, it starts a bit later because free, yeah. So you can write letters. You always get aids. You like help. Yeah, you are never left alone. You always have one-click translation. This will come out on Christmas. So, for example, den Hund beißt der Mann. Here's the sentence that I want to show you. Now I can give you the meanings. Hund means hound or dog. Beißt means bites, and Mann means man. But the question remains, who is biting whom? And that is decided by grammar, not by order like in English. In English, you would say the dog bites the man, right? Because the dog comes first. But in German, we have this little word here, den. And every German knows, no, it is the dog that is being bitten. And this is the beauty of grammar. It's not always that clear and that easy, but it allows me to place words in different places, and that's what philosophers and theologians also did a lot. You learn how to find and identify the elements of a sentence. And that is the first step in understanding a sentence, because if you don't know who's doing what to whom or what's going on, then you're lost already. And this is a kind of thinking I promote in my courses so that you are flexible in first understanding the language, but of course later also in producing it. But this is basically it. Yeah. And you can also sing songs if you want. I created them almost myself. So this is coming soon in December latest. It's a beautiful way of doing this. You can practice things individually. If you want to practice listening, you do it here. Writing, grammar, all the things are also available separately. Yeah. And everything is one click away. So this is where I stopped, and this is my vocabulary training.
Es gibt
very simple, because that does it. Yeah. Good. This is basically an overview of what is there and what is to come. The principles are the same, whether you get into my courses now or on Christmas. I put all my knowledge of 25 years of experience and my studies into this, and I started studying the art of learning since I'm 18 years. Like I started it when I was 18. Yeah, because I wanted to go back to school and I never really learned how to learn. And I got so fascinated by the art of learning that it never stopped. Nowadays, the art of learning is relatively clear. Like philosophical thinking, I would say the core approach doesn't change. How to read philosophical texts, that will not change the next 100 years. The same with the art of learning. The tools we use for learning and the design of how we present the information and help you take it in, that of course is evolving. I use AI very specifically for speaking and writing. It gives you quite excellent feedback already, so you don't need me to be around. Yeah, and I don't need to charge $100 an hour to correct your texts. The AI does that for cents. Another philosophical topic, whether we should use that, but I leave that to the Halcyon Academy. That definitely has a course on AI soon.
No, never. No, it's an overcrowded market. You let all the
I'm not selling. Yeah, I wouldn't sell AI as the main thing, but it's a tool. So if I want to hang up a painting on the wall, I use a hammer and a nail. So that's what AI is for me.
Umberto Eco says in Il Cimitero di Praga, the cemetery of Prague, that the German language is the worst of them all, of the European languages, because it's all jumbled. any word can be anywhere. There's no logic to it. Den Hund beißt der Mann, as an example. The dog bites. Well, the man bites the dog. It's so no, you disagree?
There's conventions that also the Germans stick to. Germans like rules and order, right? So we stick to a certain order, but you can go more creative. But I think you can do that with almost any language. Yeah. Just in different manners and ways.
In poetry, yes, but not in everyday speaking. It's not, that's where the German language is it's actually more fluid than one would assume.
Have you ever spoken to a young person?
Thank God I haven't in a long time.
Language is evolving, right? And there is a creative use in daily life, especially youth language. I have a 25-year-old son, and I still understand him, luckily. But there were phases where he used language that made no sense to me. For example, I asked him, why did you do this? And he says, aus Gründen, because reasons. That makes no sense to me.
That's terrifying, because it's internet English that makes its way into everyday German. Yeah.
And grammar is butchered regularly by young people. Germans, not only people that have learned it as a second language, but native speakers. Butchered. What means butchered? It's
not embellished. It is not.
Here's an interesting thought for you. So there is there's two things. There is something called leichte Sprache oder einfache Sprache. So that is for people that struggle with complex structures. So news are simplified. And there is definitely books like Hegel in einfacher Sprache. Have you ever come across those? That would be an interesting starting point. I actually should look into that.
Maybe for you.
Yeah. No, as a learner, right? So why not start with Hegel in einfacher Sprache? How would you simplify that?
Because you can't simplify.
You can.
No. No, because it evaporates. It evaporates. But this is why, this is for another time to discuss, but this is why there is religion. There used to be religion. Religion uses images, metaphors. You will go to heaven when you die, to express the very abstract, complicated thought that we are, as finite beings, capable of the infinite, which you can go, further into further detail. But you have to use images like heaven, etc. And
that is simple language, simple enough.
Yes, well, not a simple thought though. If you try and execute, no, of course not.
No, not a simple thought, absolutely not. But the language can be simple, right?
Yes, but
I understand what you want to say. I agree. But
it's precisely because it's not already clear and obvious what they're trying to say. That language. This is why everyday terms in philosophy take on a different meaning, insofar as the philosopher begins to recognize or hear something in the word that everyday language doesn't hear. Aristotle does this, for example, with the word eudaimonia. He says, and they all talk about eudaimonia, happiness or flourishing, etc., as we translate it. But what is its content? Is it getting drunk? Is it having money? And then he shows that no, because none of them are actually ends in themselves. Eudaimonia must be an end in itself. So, and the rest is then Nicomachean ethics, for example. Beautiful. Then there's Plato. You know the word idea. You've heard the word idea, which to us is purely mental, as we might say today. All right, mental. That's taken on a different meaning as well. That's mental, mate, which means crazy. That's sick, bro. It's weird how the language has changed. But mental meaning, it's of the intellect, it's of the mind. But idea, the Greek word, just as the word eidos, means appearance, outer appearance of something. And so Plato wonders, how is it that things appear? And how can we, let's say, make sure that what appears is actually, put it very simply, is really or is real? And so the word idea begins to change. So the word that we now know is idea. So it no longer means outer appearance, it actually becomes something of the mind or invisible, which then appears in the visible. So it flips it on its head. And that's what all philosophers do all the time.
Beautiful, beautiful.
You see?
I work,
yeah.
I work
Go
a lot with etymology as well, right? So
Yeah.
because I love this origin story of something, possibly also looked up idea, but I cannot store all that information, and neither do you have to remember it, but just connecting it to this gives it a certain depth that will stay with you. Yeah, and also a connection to the language. Absolutely love this idea, the point.
The idea of
You know that there is the supposedly quote by Albert Einstein, someone asking him why he doesn't take notes, or why doesn't he have a notebook to write down all his ideas, because he was possibly known for having many ideas. He says, I only have 2 or 3 real ideas in years to come, so I can remember them. True ideas are memorable. He never said that, but it's a nice fake quote that I really like. A true idea is something I always say I have 1,000 ideas from the moment I wake up until I go to sleep. But of course, not of that nature. Yeah. I like that. It's a nice, or idiot is another nice etymology, right?
The layman, the man who is to himself, idiotis.
Yeah. What a change, huh?
Well, another one is problem, which we have in every single, which is Greek. We have in every single European language. And it means cliff. Yeah. So you climb up the cliff and you're on top of it. And it means riddle and solution in one. The Greeks not always, but often think in this manner, that there's a riddle, but it contains its solution already.
Beautiful.
Proballo, it comes from proballo. So I throw towards, or I throw before. It's connected to, in that sense, to symbol, symbalein, to throw together. There's pharmakon, where we get pharmacy from, which means medicine and poison. Because it's all about degree, isn't it? But amounts and degrees of how much you take of that paracetamol.
Yeah. Die Dosis macht das Gift, huh?
The gift, the present.
Yeah, see,
the
that closes the circle.
Dosage makes the poison. I don't know, that's probably a nicer way of saying this in English. I can't think of it now. But if we just stay with gift, then it makes the present. If we use the German misunderstood term, yeah.
There's one last thing that comes to mind, because I find it so beautiful. So in grammar, we have what we call tenses. We talk about what is here now, the past, the future. And if you look, I always say you only need 2 out of 6 that we have. And the present tense covers everything that starts from now towards the future. So if I remember this correctly, I have to say it has been a while. Present means from here onwards. And that makes the future tense kind of redundant, but of course we still use a special tense. I will look this up later. Yeah. But in German, I could say, ich schaue das später nach. I look it up.
Later, yeah.
Or I look it up later. So I don't need to use fancy constructions, but you can consciously use the future tense, of course, but it can mean something in the past even. So there is a sort of complexity that will reveal itself over time the more you progress. But if you start with this, it will just overwhelm you. So that's why it's very important to have a clear structure, have guidance. And most importantly, I want to stress that doesn't mean you need to work with dumbed down stuff. Because I honestly get bored if I have to read children's books, the baby kind. Children's books for 6, 7 years olds are splendid, beautiful, but they're far too complex. So you can start with a real story like I do if you have the helpers to decode the story, to understand it. I always work with understanding. What you need to understand needs to be very clear, which is why my course teaches you German using English. To me, this is a must. I learned this at uni, I came across a wonderful person that is nowadays a friend of mine because we connected over this, that did scientific research or continued scientific research from the English, who started the research, that using the native language or a language you understand when learning a new language is highly beneficial. And in many language courses worldwide, they have a different philosophy that started in the 60s with Berlitz, and where they thought, oh no, you have to immerse people into the language. You have to speak only German to them from day one.
Yeah.
Sure, that is exciting. That can be fun for maybe a month if you're lucky. Depends on the intensity, but it's very exhausting. And the moment you leave simplicity, you go into a little bit more complexity.
Yeah.
Like, how do you explain liberty to someone? Freiheit, yeah. You can still symbolize. You show the Statue of Liberty. That's why it shows the translation. But you quickly start struggling, and it's a very painful, very slow way of learning, in my experience and to my scientific knowledge, that I didn't want to do this. Anyone who wants to do this is free to do so, and you can learn German to it, but it makes your life so much more difficult. And I cannot recommend it personally. This is my personal opinion. I have to stress this, but it's based on 25 years of research and experience. No.
Excellent.
And why throw out the baby with the bathwater? You have already lots of German in you without knowing it. English and German have so many parts that are overlapping, and there's differences that also can be used to help you learn German. Not using English to me is really giving up on or throwing out things that could be helpful. Why would you do this? That makes no sense to me. Good. I'm done with this. There's the smarter German philosophy in a nutshell.
Excellent. So I'll link to your website so that people can sign up. And in future, if anyone asks, I'll just give them the link to Smarter German. Please
do. Ask Johannes for the link. Yeah, and I'm happy to see you. And also, if you have any questions beforehand, you reach out to me and I'll help you. Yeah, but I optimize everything so that there shouldn't be many questions left over. Take a look around my homepage when you get there, and I'm looking forward to seeing you learn German. Yeah, it's a beautiful language, despite what. Who was it you quoted?
Luther.
That said, Umberto Eco says.
Oh,
and
Eco.
Mark Twain.
Oh yes, yeah, another one.
Yeah.
Right.
They left the language secretly. Come on.
Or didn't know it.
No, Twain tried, from what I've read.
Yeah,
and
okay, good. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Johannes.
Thanks. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
a pleasure.
Pleasure, likewise.
Goodbye.